All right. Hello, and welcome everyone. My name is Rachel. I'm the digital content creator here at Moving to Canada, and I will also be your host for today's live stream on the current state of Express Entry. We have a lot to unpack, and we're so excited to dive into the latest updates and insights with all of you. As we wait for more viewers to trickle in, to those that are currently here, let us know where you guys are tuning in from in the live chat below. It's always fascinating to see where everyone is watching from, and it really highlights the amazing diversity of our community. So I can see a couple comments trickling in. Uh, to answer the question, will this be recorded afterwards or posted afterwards? Yes, it will be available. And especially if you do have additional questions or comments, you can always add them in. Or if you want to rewatch parts of this video, it will be available on our YouTube channel afterwards. So joining in from, I see already a couple comments from the UK, Toronto. Oh, I see one from the Philippines. Hello, kababayan. So very exciting. Now, I guess we can jump in with our first slide and discuss. I think before we get into the discussion, it'll be good to understand who this live stream is for. So this live stream is pretty much for anyone considering to apply for permanent residency through the Express Entry program, or maybe you're someone that's already submitted your profile and are anxiously waiting in the pool. I understand what that feels like, but even if you're not from that bucket, it could also just be for anyone who's curious about the future of Express Entry, especially given the recent changes and challenges that we're facing. So if you want to understand the draw patterns or if you want to formulate strategies to help you navigate the Express Entry system, then this informative session will provide you with invaluable insights. And I guess this is no feat for just one person. So I have to call in the team. So joining me today are my colleagues, Rebecca Major and Stephanie Ford. So Steph, would you kindly take the lead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Steph or Stephanie. I am a writer at Moving to Canada, and I typically cover immigration and personal finance topics, as well as some lifestyle content, which is always really fun to write about. I have lived in Canada for just over 5 years now, starting with the visitor visa, and then I loved it here, so moved on to IEC, and now I'm a permanent resident. I immigrated during the pandemic, which was rough in terms of waiting for the right draw to come through. So I know what it's like firsthand immigrating during uncertain times, and I really empathize with anyone who is waiting for the right draw at this point. It is uncertain what IRCC is going to do next. So yeah, I am sorry. And I really empathize with what you're going through. In terms of my background and how I ended up with moving to Canada, I studied a Bachelor of Laws in Australia and a postgrad diploma in financial planning. And I've been writing about the law for about 8 years now. I really love my job. But I do want to mention that I'm not a qualified or practicing lawyer or financial advisor. So I'm not registered and I'm not qualified to give individual advice. I just give broad information. And other than that, I'm really looking forward to speaking with you all today.
Yeah. Steph, you do a fantastic job of just breaking down the information for our community and really giving it to them in a way that helps them make sense of all this crazy that's going on. And definitely your experience immigrating through the pandemic is super valuable for, I'm sure, most people here and just life living in Canada. She's super outdoorsy, so she's always telling us about what we should be doing. And yeah, if you ever catch her talking about a personal lifestyle thing, then you should read because it's going to be fun. So I'm Rebecca. I'm the operations manager here at Moving to Canada. I'm also a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I have been working in the industry since 2010 when I first moved to Canada. I'm not originally from Canada. I'm from the UK, but I'm now a dual citizen of both Canada and the UK. So as I said, I'm very passionate about helping people immigrate to Canada. It's something that, just gives me a lot of fulfillment. At moving to Canada, I have we have a great community of people that rely on us for the information, and I'm super happy to be able to kind of distribute the information in a way that helps people. Like Steph, I have a Bachelor of Laws from the UK and a postgraduate diploma in legal practice, and that's when I came to Canada and pursued immigration. I currently live in Montreal, so I'm from the French-speaking area. If anyone is currently in Montreal, hello. If not, Steph's in BC, and so is Rachel. So I'm representing Montreal today.
Perfect. Yeah, and might I just add, like, Steph is primarily responsible for covering all the latest Express Entry news and insights. So for me, I found that incredibly helpful because she has this knack for breaking down the numbers and also helping us understand the meaning behind the numbers, something that I wish I had a few years back. And as well as for Rebecca, like, she also just provides so many valuable insights on a variety of immigration topics, not just Express Entry. And so I'm pretty excited with your powers combined to hear all your insights in today's topic.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we might as well jump into the first slide. Oh, and by the way, for the viewers watching, we'll try to keep our discussion concise to maximize our time engaging with you, because at the end of our session, there's going to be a live Q&A. So if at any point in time you think of questions to ask, just pop them in the live chat. We'll try to circle back to them. And with that, let's just dive right into the first topic. So,
Rachel, is that your way of saying Rebecca, be quick with this one? So Express Entry refresher, I'm going to just assume that we could have people from like all different stages of the Express Entry program and journey. So I'm going to give a really fast overview. So the Express Entry system was introduced in 2015, so we're coming up to 10 years. And it's a system used by the Canadian government to source immigrants through 3 of the federal immigration programs: the Canadian Experience Class, Federal Skilled Worker, and Federal Skilled Trade Worker. So for anyone that has looked into it, I always refer to like this Express Entry system as a 2-step process. So first of all, you must qualify for an immigration program. Once you qualify for a program, you enter the Express Entry pool. Once you've entered the pool, you're then given a comprehensive ranking score, which is basically a score which combines age, education, work experience, education, language, all those kinds of stuff. And you're ranked against others in the pool. RCIC invite people from the pool via Express Entry draws. The Express Entry draws used to happen on a relatively frequent basis. So every 2 weeks, we knew there was going to be a draw that's happening. As it's got as time's gone on, or as the program has evolved, we're seeing less of a structure to the draws. So it's kind of always a bit like, is there going to be a draw? Isn't there going to be a draw? So it's always a hot topic, draws. There are a few types of draws that you can be selected under. They are the general draws, so that's someone that just qualifies to enter the pool. There are program-specific draws, so that could be people that qualify for a specific program. So IRCC might want to target provincial nominee program applicants, for instance, or Canadian Experience Class applicants. Someone has just said that they received an invitation, which is great. Well done. I mean, that's, woohoo. So sorry, just take a second to celebrate that one. And there's category-based draws, which are new. So they were introduced a year ago, and they focus on a specific occupation. And the idea is that whichever kind of draw you're targeting or you're after, you really want to optimize your CRS score so you get the most CRS points possible to get an invitation to apply, because they will only select the top tier candidates for each type of draw that they're looking at. At selecting. If you are lucky enough to get an ITA, you then go on to submit an application for permanent residency, and processing time for that is currently around 6 months. So it's one of like the fastest ways you can immigrate to Canada if you are lucky enough to be eligible and selected.
perfect. And with that, I guess with Steph, like, it's time to break down, like, what's the latest news regarding Express Entry that our viewers should be aware of?
So we recently hit the 305 Express Entry draw mark. We were all pretty excited to see the 300th, and I think wrote a post about that. So yeah, it was really, really cool reflecting on the last 10 years of Express Entry. I think most of the value from reflecting on what happened is that we can guess, really predict a little bit what may happen. And I think probably one of the most important takeaways for this webinar is that we're likely in the second half of 2024 to see approximately like 70,000 invitations issued through Express Entry. July put a dent in that 70,000 that we're expecting, with close to 20,000 so far. And it is possible that we will have another bout of Express Entry draws on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. So that would bring the July total up higher. And yeah, I'm hoping we have seen a trend over the past 7 weeks at this point of IRCC running a PNP draw every other Tuesday. I hope that continues, and I would really love to see a CEC Canadian Experience class draw on the 31st, but that remains to be seen. We haven't had enough of those yet to say that there's any kind of pattern from IRCC yet. So
yeah, and looking at the recent draws, what patterns or insights can we gather?
It is so challenging. I feel like this year, every time we've gotten in a groove with IRCC, completing a few draws in a row where, you think like every Tuesday, or if not every Tuesday, it's at least every second week, maybe on Monday, maybe on Friday, but we were getting, every second week. And then May and June hit and we saw very little draw activity. I think there were just over 1,000 invitations issued in June, which was extremely low. And I can only imagine fairly distressing for a lot of people sitting in the pool. But yeah, as I said, we've seen program-specific draws every other week for the past 6 weeks. So I'm hoping they keep up that trend. If they do, it is likely that they will continue to do the Canadian Experience class and provincial nominee program draws. I do think we're likely to see fewer general draws throughout the rest of the year, because I would imagine that they're focusing on transitioning people who are currently working in Canada with that Canadian experience or with a job offer, which is a lot of what CEC and PNP covers. So they're really focusing on that. And then outside of that, they are focusing on the people who are qualified for the category-based draws. So I wouldn't be shocked to see occasional general draws, but they will probably have a higher CRS, and we'll see hopefully more regular CEC and PNP. Otherwise, we can expect probably one French draw at least per month for the rest of the year. We know that they have a target of 30% of Express Entry invitations going to French speakers in 2024. So that does total out to, around one per month, unless they do another mega draw like they did in February with the 7,000 invited. And then we'll also probably see several more STEM and healthcare draws, and then at least one for trade, transport, and agriculture in the tail end of 2024.
Now, for Rebecca, what can we expect in the future, in the near future, rather, regarding Express Entry, and especially with the potential changes happening right now?
Yeah, so it's always a little bit hard to kind of look in the future and make predictions. One thing we're pretty confident at happening is that the category-based draws, the categories and the occupations that form these categories are due for a change. So when the concept of category-based draws was introduced, it was so that they could source immigrants to fill a labour shortage. And of course, to do that, they have to be responsive to the labour shortages that are happening. In 2024, they didn't update the list of occupations from the original list in 2023. In 2025, we do expect that they're going to kind of make some updates to that list. That was confirmed by an internal IRCC survey that was sent out. And that really kind of focused on what stakeholders think the category-based draws should focus on. One key takeaway is that they're looking at adding education, so education-related occupations, so teachers and things like that, to the categories. It doesn't look like they're going to take away any categories, but they could remove some of the occupations that form those categories. They're also going to look at covering industries that cover natural resources, new technologies, and applied sciences. Again, we don't have a huge amount of information on what that means. The survey also did hit on the fact that they want to transition more temporary residents to permanent status. And Steph, you had commented on this a few minutes back. There's a huge amount of temporary residents in Canada right now, and they're really trying to work out how best they can help those in Canada. So they're likely kind of going to work on a way to transition more temporary residents to PR, whether that means they're going to do more CEC draws, Canadian Experience Class draws. Maybe they're going to change category-based draws. So with a focus on CEC, I don't know, but we're going to see some kind of focus on transitioning more temporary residents. So your former international students, your foreign workers right now to PR status, and we'll see that reflected in the kind of draws we see. One thing, again, if you're kind of thinking, okay, well, what can I do? How can I best position myself? We know from a long-term vision that RCIC are prioritizing French. Again, Steph touched on this. By 2026, they want 8% of all new immigrants to have some French language ability. So 2025 will also focus, we'll see a heavy focus on French language and applicants with French language ability. So.
Oh, I think Rebecca froze there, but yeah, I guess like we could move on. I mean, she already touched on ways to improve your chances for PR, so we might as well discuss the other key points that will help our viewers prepare or boost their express entry score. So, Steph, would you like to take the lead on this?
Yeah, so I guess we've mentioned it a few times, and I know I am saying this as a person who doesn't speak French, but learning to speak French can really give you a boost. I love this, but we've started hearing stories from our community about people who started learning French a little over 12 to 18 months ago. Each of them who started from scratch has taken a fairly intensive course, an intensive approach to learning French, but we are seeing people who within the last 12 months have started learning French and have cleared the French speaking tests for Canadian immigration. So they're getting those points for French and qualifying for the French draw as well. So it is possible. It will be tricky, but it is a good way to boost your CRS. And then if your first Canadian language is English, then scoring at least a CLB level 9 in English as well is really helpful.
I don't know if I'm back. If I'm back, I'll take the lead on this.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys. I don't know when I stopped talking or if I carried on talking to myself for a bit, who knows. Other ways that you can boost your chances of PR. So it seems like you just want to make sure that you're claiming every point possible, every CRS point possible. So that would include if you've got an accompanying spouse, have they provided language results and an ECA report? Are you claiming everything for them? Your NOC codes, have you had a look at the NOC code? So the codes that you've assigned to your work experience, how does that compare with the category-based draws? Is there any overlap which you could kind of say, okay, well, I actually do this. Often we find when it comes to selecting an occupation, there's overlap between NOC codes. Just remember, whatever you choose, you have to justify. So there's no point saying, oh, I work as a X when you don't, because there's no benefit to that. Other ways that you can increase your CRS, which are perhaps a little bit harder, are job search and finding employment in Canada, or looking into your PMP options. PMP is kind of a very common alternative or way to boost your CRS score. Although a lot of them do require some connection, so a job offer, previous education, things like that. There are some that you can apply to. So just keeping an eye on your PMP options, and remember, just like express entry, PMP change as well. So it's not a case of like look once and you're done. Just kind of have a mindful, like every month or so, just have a look out for what's going on in the PMP world. Yeah.
I did have a question on learning French. Like, how soon should you start if you were to get into the group, and would it? Yeah, that's
As someone, like, I live in Montreal, and my French is not great. and I wish I spoke more French. And I, again, like Steph, I recognize that saying, oh, just go off and learn French is easier said than done, but it's actually something that if you're looking at measurable steps that you can take to really improve your scores and chances, this is it. So the sooner you start, the better, whether that looks like just downloading an app to try and get you familiar with using words, or going all out and going to a class and things like that. But really sooner rather than later, because what I imagine will happen is that more and more people are going to start learning French. And so the French category is going to become more and more competitive. You want to get in before everyone else. You want to stand out sooner rather than later. If this is a 2 to 3 year project, by year 3, there might be many different options. There might be a much more competitive pool. Right now, it's not as competitive. So the sooner you can commit to learning French, the more advantageous it is.
I do just quickly want to say as well, if you learn French, it will probably help you with job prospects once you come to Canada. Being bilingual is an advantage in the job market. And in addition to that, it opens up all of Canada to you. So if you opt to learn French, maybe don't look at it just as I'm doing this because I have to for express entry. Look at it as this is going to make my new home country. It will open up so many doors. And yeah, maybe draw inspiration from that when you're like frustrated on a Saturday night learning French instead of doing something potentially a little bit more fun.
Yeah, that's great feedback. It's not just like a short-term win, it's really long-term. Yeah.
Long-term gain, exactly. Well, perfect. Well, thank you guys for running us through the checklist of things that they should focus on to improve their chances for PR. And I think we're right on time for that live Q&A session. So again, for the viewers watching, if you have questions about Express Entry or anything in general that we've discussed today, please type them in the chat. And I'm going to be quickly marking some of the comments I already see on the screen, and maybe we could just tackle it one by one. So this is the first question. So I am someone who works in finance, don't speak French, so none of the category-based draws work for me. I have 2 years of experience in Canada, living in Ontario after moving from Montreal. I'm not sure what the question is there, but
so I would say, I'm going to assume the question is, what do I do? Like, what do I do with this? I would say if you qualify to enter the Express Entry pool, then you should enter the Express Entry pool, because not only are you entering the pool, opening yourself up for an invitation via the Express Entry draws, there are also a number of provinces that select and invite applicants directly from the pool. So if you're not in the pool, there's no way you're going to get access to those PMPs. So if you are eligible to enter the pool, you should enter the pool, and then you work on improving your CRS. And so what you could do then, you see which areas can you improve. So I don't know, again, you might have another year of work experience on your work permit. That'll give you another year. Can you improve your English language at all? Can you learn some French to help give you that boost? But you should look at entering the pool. You should then look at expanding your search to any PMPs that might be available to you, and then also strengthening or optimizing your Express Entry profile.
And it's a good thing that you mentioned that, because I wanted to quickly bring up that we do have an Express Entry calculator, and it pretty much helps you understand a breakdown of your score. And you might be thinking, how is that any different from the one on CIC or IRCC's website for that matter? Well, it does give you like an initial assessment of which you may enter. Like, you're not just getting a breakdown of your score, but you're also given context about which programs you're eligible for. So like very quickly, I just pre-filled this, and as you can see on the lower right, you can learn which Express Entry programs you're eligible for, and also know your CRS score. But even better, when you scroll down, further down, so here's the breakdown, but it also just gives you tips on ways to, it also helps you understand where you fall, like what range you fall, and how like if you should be trying to improve it. And yeah, there's a lot of like this is a rich information in terms of like what you should do to navigate this challenging time. And yeah, we even have a video on how to improve your score. So it's worth checking out. Let me just quickly plop it in. This is the link that you can use to calculate your CRS score. So just a quick tip for everyone watching.
Yeah, it's a great tool. Like if you want to just play around, be like, oh, if I scored this in English, if I scored this, if I was able to acquire this in French, what would it actually mean for me? It's a really useful tool to kind of get you on the mind frame of what you can be doing. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next question then. So question for later, but would you recommend using an immigration lawyer for PR, from your PR application?
So I'll take this one, Steph, if you don't mind. It's a really personal question because it really depends on a lot of factors, like your ability to find the information that you need, and your ability to kind of follow instruction. But above that, it's a time commitment. So one advantage of using a representative is that they can help you explore different options and they can prepare things for you. If you're looking at entering the express entry pool, that's not an overly complex process. But if you have any factors which make it more complicated, so you have like a medical issue or a criminal issue, you probably want to consult with someone. If you are kind of really stuck, a representative can help you plan out your strategy of your immigration strategy. But it really depends on the individual resources. What might be a nice compromise is that you handle a large portion of yourself and you consult with a representative. If you have like certain questions that you really just need confidence in your answer. So it's a really personal question. It depends on a lot of factors. Yeah.
I'll just interject with one thing as well. It is important to remember that it's a legal process, and a lot of what you might think of as a non-lawyer isn't necessarily so under the law. So the job offer requirement, for example, it does not mean that an employer has offered you a job. That is not a valid job offer in express entry. There are like specific requirements. Correct me if I'm off base, Rebecca, but unless it's an LMIA exempt position, you need an LMIA for your job offer to be valid for express entry. So yeah, you might go through and think that you have a valid job offer, but when you dig into the legal specifications, the everyday use of the term and the legal use of the term can mean two very different things. So there is that to be wary of. And again, if you do your research, you'll find that information online, but it is a very big time commitment working out exactly what the requirements mean under the law, not just in English.
And
Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say like most people like might not have the luxury of time to really dig deep into all the articles, all the subsections to understand the terminologies and the actual legal process of going about it. And even speaking from my own experience, in terms of the job offer, I also thought that a job offer was just a job offer. Like, this is my letter. I got offered the job, but so would that mean I got 50 points on top for my CRS score because I have that job offer? But the fine print there is like that it should be an LMIA.
And what you often find is someone like, oh, well, I knew this person that did it themselves. And the thing with that is everyone's background is different. What they need to show can be substantially different. So just because one person was able to manage it by themselves, it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone can and should. One thing that we do offer, though, which is kind of a great resource, is if you have a Move into Canada account. For express entry specifically, we have a checklist. We call it kind of a checklist, and it basically takes you through step by step all the things that you need to do, on the premise that you don't know what you don't know. And so the idea is that we tell you what you need to know, and you do those steps. we try and say, identify areas in which you might want to consult with someone. But if you're kind of unsure or just need a little bit more of a confidence boost, you should check out our Moving to Canada account. And if you're an Express Entry, if you put your immigration program as an Express Entry related program, you'll have access to this really robust checklist, which will just make sure you're kind of hitting all the steps you need to be hitting. So, yeah.
Perfect. Let's move on to the next question. Can you comment on the future of tech draws?
The future of tech draws, I think, Steph, do you want to take this one, or are you okay? Sorry, I just jumped in.
No, it's all yours.
Tech has always been one of those industries which were kind of like, it's going to take off. And the STEM category has kind of fallen a bit flat. There are a number of PNP initiatives that focus on tech workers. So although you might not be seeing the STEM draws that you want to be seeing from the Express Entry pool, there are a number of tech-related PNPs that source immigrants from the Express Entry pool. I don't see tech occupations going anywhere soon. They may just have less of prominence, but to be fair, I think it's fallen a bit flat anyway. So there'll always be a demand because Canada really still wants to maintain be an innovation hub. So there's going to be always some element of that. Yeah.
Now moving on, how early should you submit an Express Entry profile? Considering your points would go up after some time or go down, for example, with age, it always decline. So yeah, how early is early?
I think as early as possible. You never know what's going to happen, what IRCC is going to do. There was the pandemic draw where they invited, 21,000 candidates with the CEC, under the CEC category. Nobody could have predicted that was going to happen. So just on the basis that none of us can see the future, put it in as early as you can and then just work to improve it over time. As far as I can see, there is absolutely no harm having the profile.
Exactly. You have an active profile. So long as you're eligible, it remains active for 12 months. You can update it at any time. In the event that 12 months lapses and you don't get an ITA in that time, an invitation to apply, you can just upload a new profile. You're not restricted by how many profiles you can have in total. You are only allowed to have one at a time. But the sooner that you qualify, you should enter the pool, because we don't know what happened. And working in the industry, and when the big CC draw happened, so many people were just disappointed. So many people had just a mass amount of regret because they were put off applying because they're like, well, there's no point. And then you should have seen the influx afterwards, because everyone was like, I need to get in the pool. Of course, it never happened again. Never say never, but getting in sooner just means that you're there in case something happens like this. It also means that category-based draws, we don't know what's going to happen with category-based draws. We can kind of guesstimate based on the survey that they're going to include certain occupations. They could throw a massive curveball and introduce many different occupations. And so in that case, being in the pool sooner may benefit you if you're looking at the cutoff rule and things like that. And
might I just add, creating an Express Entry profile is completely free.
Mm-hmm.
And it's valid for up to 1 year. And if it expires, you can just renew it. And so if you qualify for any of the Express Entry programs, it might just be good to have. Yep. I guess most of the people's concerns would be more aligned with their language scores, because there is a validity of 2 years, and maybe forking up that extra $300 to retake a test because it expired. But I think it's still worth taking, especially the unknown nature of Express Entry. No one can predict what could happen. And as you guys mentioned, there could be surprise throws, and being there at the right time really matters. That could be the difference maker between getting an invitation or not. So yeah, sooner the better. But thank you for that question, Christelle. Moving on, let's see. Here. It would be great if you could run through a timeline if I applied for my visa. Ooh, this is kind of touching on. giving advice, which is you could give a general comment on this. But if I apply for my visa in Jan 2020, Jan Feb 24, to when can I expect my ITA or job offer?
You need to remember that entering the express entry pool is not applying for a visa. So you enter the express entry pool, you then kind of sit and wait to get the ITA. And to say you enter the express entry pool, you have to do, if you have a comfortable CRS, you might just wait. Or you might use the opportunity to improve your CRS. If you have a competitive CRS score, let's say you get an invitation, you have 60 days to submit a full application. So that includes all the documents to support what you're claiming in your profile. And then processing time from that is around 6 months, depending on the immigration program. So it's really not a long time. When you're looking at job offer, though, the job offer will be done before you enter the profile. So if you want, if you need a job offer for eligibility, or if you want the CRS points, you would sort out your job offer before entering the express entry pool. That doesn't come later on. That has to be done prior to submitting, or once you're in the pool to optimize and get more points. You have generally a year from your medical examination to activate your PR visas. So that's like a really general overview. Obviously, more complicated cases will take longer and they could be processed much faster. It's unlikely that it'll be faster than 6 months, but we've seen ones that have been really fast and ones that have taken way longer than expected. So.
Perfect. Now, moving on to the next question. This was interesting. Do you think I might get an invite with 490 points?
It's impossible to predict the future. I think we've written about, there was a survey sent out by IRCC that suggests that there will be a continued focus on transitioning people who are working in Canada already into becoming permanent residents of Canada. So the Canadian Experience class is a really good program for that. So if this happens, if they continue down this path of that focus, which it looks like they will, given the extremely high number of temporary residents and the potential levels changes that we'll see in November, we can expect the score to go down. But the pool is so competitive at the moment, as well as the other thing. So I would be aiming for above 500. The higher you can get it, the better. But it would be just a guess for me to say yes or no for 900. We don't know what IRCC are looking at internally. There is no way to know. And we've been surprised by IRCC before.
Just to know, if you are lucky enough to qualify for a category-based draw, then 490 may be enough, depending on which category that you qualify for. But I would kind of reiterate what Steph's saying. It's really impossible, and it's kind of one of the most frustrating parts of the job is people just want you to be able to kind of comfort them and say it's going to be okay, but the reality is we don't know. But what we do know is that the higher you score, the more likely you are to be successful. So you really should be taking advantage of anywhere you can claim additional CRS points. Just try and claim those points. Try and kind of think forward. So I'm in Canada, I'm working, I've got 1 year left on my work permit. I'm going to acquire another year. So that means my points are going to go to this much, but it also means that I might lose points for age, for instance, or my language tests might expire. So I'm going to have to do a bit of forward thinking can also help, and also just kind of keep you busy and motivate you during this process, which is super tough just to wait around. So if there's something that you can do in your control, try and do that.
Next question from Dino. I have a visitor status, but have a valid job offer. Is it still true that I do not need to leave Canada for my application? From what I heard, it is true only until Feb 2025. Any update on this?
So this was a public policy, and I don't know off the top of my head whether the public policy is still in effect. It could be that it expires in February 2025. It never used to be that visitors could apply from a work permit from within Canada, But during COVID, they did do a public policy. I just don't know whether that public policy is still in effect. So we can look into that and get back to you.
I pulled the link. It looks like February 28, 2025.
Yeah. So in that case, I mean, the public policy could be extended. Yeah, it could be extended, but I would plan for it not being extended. Yeah.
This next question is from Luke from UK. Currently 6 months left on a 2-year IEC through the working holiday visa. My employer has just completed the young professionals visa for me, which gives the additional points that I need. Do you suggest ending the working holiday visa early for the young professionals and then PR?
So you're going to have to be careful with this one, because the young professional visa, that's great. It's going to give you more time. But because it's classed as an LMIA exempt work permit, you might not get the points straight away. So you're just going to have to look in to see whether you actually get the points for that work experience straight away. And it depends on how long you've been working for the employer and things like that. Just by getting the work permit doesn't automatically, like Steph said, it doesn't automatically mean it's valid. You need to make sure that you're satisfying the conditions of a valid work permit, which is LMIA exempt. Yeah. As far as ending the IEC permit is concerned, the current working holiday, that's depends on your circumstances. This is kind of like the strategy that you would want to speak to someone about, because you need a long-term strategy. It could be advantageous to stop it, but there could be something along down the line, which means it would actually be more advantageous to keep going right now and save your working holiday, your young professionals for later on. So that would be something that, I wouldn't just kind of do. I would have to do some more research to see what was right for my individual needs, and thinking about a more longer term immigration strategy in mind.
Perfect. Thanks. Now, just a quick reminder for everyone, I think we have a couple minutes left, like 5 minutes left on this live stream. So we'll try to go through the questions, some of the questions, but if we don't get to your question, you can leave that as a comment in this video. It will be available and it will be posted shortly after. So you can leave that there and we can circle back to it. But yeah, let's just move on with the next question. In Canadian work experiences, does the count only qualify the moment I applied for my PGWP? So I guess, like, to rephrase this question, does their work experience as a student count towards?
No. So work experience acquired as a student does not count towards Canadian experience class work experience. It could potentially count towards federal skilled worker points, but not the Canadian experience class. You would have to have applied for the postgraduate work permit to be able to work and count that work experience. Again, so long as it's skilled for the Canadian experience class.
Next,
sorry, Rachel, that's true for most provinces as well. Most provinces require you to not be on a student visa for it to count. So if you're looking at the CEC or provinces.
Thank you. Moving on, can I still update my English language score even after I submitted a profile in PNP?
Yes, it depends on which PNP that you have applied for. I know the portals for PEI in Saskatchewan can be a bit finicky when it comes to updating your profile. You sometimes have to deactivate your permit, your PNP application. So I'm talking about an expression of interest. I'm not talking about a PR application. If you've submitted an expression of interest to some provinces, they may require you to actually withdraw that expression and submit a new one. It depends on the province though. But what you put in your express entry profile should match your expression of interests that you've submitted to the provinces.
Perfect. Next, from Kamala, joining from the San Francisco Bay Area. Nice. How long does your IRCC application last? For example, if I put in information initially, then get a job offer or better language test scores.
I think Rebecca mentioned, touched upon it briefly earlier in this, but your profile stays valid for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
During that time, you can update your information. So your CRS can go up while your profile is, before it expires. And then if it expires and you haven't received an invitation, you'll need to create a new profile for Express Entry.
But for it to be valid for that 1 year, you have to remain eligible. So
Yes.
if you age out of the immigration program, then it will only be valid until for the period you remain eligible. So that's one thing that you have to think about. I apply now, am I going to be eligible for the whole year?
Next, getting a job offer gives 50 points, but it's a closed work permit, right? So is it better to continue my PGWP and forgo the 50 points for now, or choose the job offer and get a closed work permit, but get the 50 points?
Again, it really depends on your individual circumstances. So you can't claim job offer points for work experience acquired on a postgraduate work permit because it needs to be with a specified employer. So it can be an open work permit, an LMIA exempt work permit, but with a specified employer. So it really depends on your circumstances. Like if you need the 50 points to get selected, you might want to look at what your options are. Also note that if you are on a postgraduate work permit, you might acquire more Canadian experience anyway. That's going to boost your points. So again, you have to kind of map out a longer term vision of your immigration journey and then kind of do what's best for you based on the route that you want to take.
All right, and I guess let's just answer the last question for now. Can you explain how the bridging open work permit works? So if you're in the PR pool waiting for an ITA, are you eligible? For example, if my work permit runs out before a PR ITA, what should I do?
So the Bridge and Open Work Permit is reserved for those that have an application for permanent residency submitted under certain immigration programs. So by virtue of having an active Express Entry profile, that's not sufficient to be eligible for a Bridge and Open Work Permit. Even if you get an ITA, unless you have submitted a full application, you're not eligible. Only when you submit that PR application, so you've received an invitation, you've gathered all your documents, you've submitted it to RCIC, are you eligible for a Bridge and Open Work Permit if the program that you are applying under has a Bridge and Open Work Permit associated with it. So by virtue of just being in the pool waiting for an ITA, no, you cannot get a Bridge and Open Work Permit. If you're in Canada and you want to explore ways to extend your stay, you're going to have to look outside of the Bridge and Open Work Permit.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. I think we've covered a lot today. And guys, for the viewers out there, we were just hoping this to be like a 15-minute live stream, but turned out to be almost an hour. So you know what? We covered a lot of ground today and answered most of your questions. So again, a big thank you to Rebecca and Steph for sharing their valuable insights on today's topic. And of course, to everyone who has participated and has made this discussion so engaging and productive. I mean, we did not expect this level of questions to trickle in. But yeah, if you found this information helpful, this video will be available shortly after. So if you could kindly like this video and share it with anyone who might benefit from this info, please do. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel here at Moving to Canada, especially since we consistently post the latest updates on all things Canadian immigration. Any parting words from Steph and Rebecca before we...
I'm just going to put in here, we did have a number of questions before the webinar that we didn't have a chance to address. So we'll try and get to them in response to how they were given to us. So we'll try and still respond to them. But it's been wonderful joining my colleagues and hopefully helping people out a little bit.
Perfect. And I guess with that, we'll wrap up today's session. So thank you again for everyone watching, and we wish you all the best in your journey. So take care and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.